it may well be better for you as a 22 applicant to be a stronger applicant at that point for that reason. Well, good evening, Indira. How are you?
Hi, good. How are you?
I'm doing well. Tell us where are you at right now?
I am currently in North Carolina, in my home, as everyone else is right now.
Right. So you are you from North Carolina originally?
No, I have roots all over, but I was actually born in Colombia, the country, and then I moved to the United States when I was 8 years old, and I lived in New York City for most of my life, pretty much up until I was about 20. Yeah, 20. And then I joined the Navy and I lived in Washington State where I was stationed for, I lived there for about 7 years. And then, yeah, I've moved around a lot. After that, I was in Maryland and now I'm here. So lots of
Yeah.
places.
Okay. Well, awesome. So sounds like you've got a rich experience base.
So many experiences.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, good for you. Excellent. And but North Carolina right now, and so tell us a little bit about yourself. Maybe more than you've told us already. Tell us a little bit about Indira and kind of what you got going on, and let us get to know you a little bit.
Yeah, so like I said, I joined the Navy. And after I got out, I decided that I wanted to go back to finish my undergrad, which was something that was very important for me to do. I'm the first person in my immediate family to graduate from college. And so it was really important for me to be able to finish that. And so I did my undergrad in Washington. And then I was not sure what I was going to do afterwards, but I really wanted to do research. And probably about a year, no, maybe like 6 months after I graduated, my dad became very ill. And so my parents, living in Colombia was really hard for me to travel back and forth. So I decided that I wanted to be a little bit closer. A job opportunity came up doing the same thing that I was doing in the Navy. And so I decided to move across the country and I started work in Maryland. And during my dad's transition through his, being ill and kind of things, me traveling back and forth and having to help care for him during his sickness and all that. I guess during that period was when I really found that I wanted to be in medicine and that this is what I wanted to do. And I had interviewed for schools to do a PhD and I didn't get into any of those programs. And so I started really kind of looking at, my school, my experiences. I have some research, but I didn't have enough. And being like a first generation graduate, from my immediate family, I really didn't know what it entailed to apply to all these programs and to do. So I was kind of all over the place. I feel like I was all over the place. And so once I started doing a lot of research about what it would take for me to get to medical school and how I could improve and get the experience that I needed to apply. And I found out about the MCAT and everything that I needed to do. So I decided to do a postbac program because I was missing 2 prereqs and my GPA is not the greatest. And so I moved to North Carolina to do a postbac program. And here we are.
Yeah, good. Now, where in North Carolina are you?
I'm in Greensboro. I'm currently attending UNCG.
Okay, awesome. That's wonderful. I'm somewhat familiar with that campus, and I think I know somebody who either used to be on faculty there or maybe still is. Who is the person in charge of your postbac program?
In charge of it, I'm not 100% sure. I just started this semester,
Okay.
so I'm not. Yeah, I'm
Oh,
not
okay.
super
Okay.
familiar with
Okay.
everyone yet.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. No worries. Yeah. The guy I knew was Dr. Rob Cannon was his name, and I think Greensboro was where he was on faculty, but I think he may be retired, so that may not be. Anyway, neither here nor
Yeah,
there.
doesn't sound super
So,
familiar to me. But I just got
yeah,
here,
okay.
so
Good. Yeah. 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 Good. All right. Well, let's take a look at your mapped profile, at your mapped dashboard, and kind of start walking our way through that. Great. So, what we see here, we'll start off with the GPA graph and look at that a little bit. So, what we see here is a cumulative GPA of 3.26. Science GPA of 2.99, and we see some ups and downs here relative to your semester by semester GPA. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what was going on and how this all kind of progressed?
so I did. Let's see, the beginning part. I've been through three schools now. So I first attended Lehman College in the Bronx in New York City, and I had a strong start, I would say, but I was at the time trying to work to pretty much, maintain myself, and things are expensive in New York, and I had a lot of things going on with
Yeah,
my family. My parents had recently moved back to Colombia, so it was a lot going on, and so my
sure.
grades started kind of dropping, and I was like, you know what, I don't want this to affect my grades, so I'm just going to remove myself from school. And
Hmm.
I was in the honors program, and my advisor was had very strong opinions about me leaving and joining the military. So I still decided that it was best at the time. So that's when I joined the Navy. And then after that, I attended Western Washington University. And so
Hmm.
let's see, that's spring of 15-16. And let's
Yeah.
see. Yeah, and then there's a dip, summer 16-17, and that happened to be, so I decided to take an accelerated or the accelerated version of our organic chemistry series in my school.
Mm.
And at that time, I was going through a breakup that led me to have to move my home kind of like overnight, take my things,
Mm.
and just kind of like uprooted my life overnight. And so that was
Yeah.
took a toll on my, like, not only was I taking organic chemistry, but it was the accelerated version. So of course, so that affected that part there. I was in a rough situation. I was like living out of my car for like weeks, and yeah, it was just really rough at the time.
Oh
So
my God.
yeah,
I'm sorry about
so
that. Yeah.
yeah, it was a tough time, but I
Yeah. Sure.
decided to continue moving forward. And
Yeah.
yeah, after that, I mean, it's uh it's averaged out, I guess. My trend line, my blue trend line of like my cumulative
Right.
is pretty straight the whole time. But yeah, that was kind
Right.
of that dip that summer, and then after that it kind of continued upward. During the summer of 17-18, I have a 4.0. I only took one class that semester, and then I did research. That's when I was participating in the research lab. So that's kind of why there's like, it looks like a huge hike, but it was one class. So it's pretty much
Okay.
upward.
Gotcha.
Yeah, it was
Gotcha.
pretty much upward from that summer.
Okay. Now, is Western? You said Western Washington University. Is that
Yes.
where you finished up? You graduated from there?
Yes, I got a degree in behavioral neuroscience.
Okay. Awesome. Awesome. Behavioral. Yeah, that's wonderful. Okay. Awesome. And so now you've just started the postbac program in North Carolina, and that is a 1 year or 2 year program or what?
So initially, I wanted to get a second degree and graduate with a second degree. Honestly, as time has gone on, I feel like it's probably more beneficial for me to save some of my GI Bill that I have left and maybe use it towards medical school, at least for a semester. Anything that'll help me keep that debt down. So I'm thinking about the prereqs that I had to complete will be completed next semester. And then after that, I'm just
Uh
going to
huh.
take calculus over the summer. So it would technically be a year
Okay.
and then like one summer class. So I was wanting to apply June of 2021. Yes. Okay. June of 2021.
Okay. So next June.
Next
Yeah.
cycle. Yes.
Okay. 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 Good. Good. All right. So let's talk a little bit about your MCAT. I know that it looks like you have a 494, and I think that's a diagnostic. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And what is your plan? What's the timeline, the plan you've got in terms of the MCAT?
So I have right now, my plan is to do my review for a month, about a month or so, the month of December, pretty much beginning of January, and do some
Mm-hmm.
questions along the way with that. So like Anki cards and stuff like that, do some review with that. And then after that, utilize other resources to do more of the studying aspect of it up until I get to so like practice exams and stuff like that up until I get to closer to my
Mm-hmm.
testing date. I wanted to test May 1st just in case that score doesn't work out or just in case I need to postpone something or retake. That will give me a little bit of buffer room, but I want to have my exam done by May 1st, which is I think we have a break at that point, and then submit everything June, like whenever everything opens up.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, yeah. Sounds like a reasonable plan. Now, are you going to be taking a prep class? Are you going to do it on your own, or what's that going to look like?
No, I'm just gonna be doing it on my own. I think that as
Okay.
of yeah, I think that as of right now, me going through the review and then I've gathered kind of like the sources that I want, they're in place. And I have enough, I feel like I have enough wiggle room to adjust things here and there if I need to, but I don't really feel like I'll probably do a course.
Okay. Okay. Cool. All right. So let's get back to your dashboard and let's look at your activities. If you'll go to the activity, the activity tab there on the left and click on that, and let's get a sense of a little bit of kind of what you've been all about. So, now obviously the largest number of things that the hours that you have is your work in the military. Tell us a little bit about that. How long? So you were in the military for looks like 4 years. Is that
Yes.
correct?
Yes.
Okay, and you were based on a ship, or were you on shore, or what was that look? What did that look like?
So I was attached to a squadron in Whidbey Island, Washington, which is a small island. There's no ships or anything like that. It's a naval air base. And my
Mm,
squadron would fly down to San Diego, where we were attached to a ship. So whenever we would go out to
okay,
sea, when we would leave for deployment, we would fly down to San Diego and then leave from there.
I got you. Cool.
Mhm.
Very cool. All right. And so what we have a lot of here is, I guess the other largest thing on this page, at least, is the research lab that you were involved with in neurobiology in the Huntington disease lab, and that was up until, I guess, not too long ago. I guess about a year and a half ago. Is that right? Up until then.
Yes, that was right before I moved back to the East Coast. So I did
Yeah. Yeah.
most of my work there was over the summer when I was just taking one course and helping out with projects over the summer was like the bulk load of those hours. And then afterwards,
Right.
I was helping with a project more of like building things for the research lab. And so, yeah, that's kind of like, well, the bulk work of that
Yeah.
came.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. You've got a kind of a variety of other community service, volunteer type stuff, both medically related and non-medically related. I guess some of it was when you were active in the military, and then other things outside of that. American Red Cross, stuff like that. There's more on page 2, I think.
Yes, that is correct.
So it looks like you've done quite a few things that are surrounding sort of veterans and working with and for veterans and stuff like that. This seems like something you're pretty passionate about. Is that correct?
Yes. So I initially, when I went back to school after the Navy, one of the biggest, I guess, opportunities I would call it that I got was to have a very amazing support network of veterans at my school. And I started working as a work study at the Veteran Services Office. And from there, things just built. I joined the Veterans Club on campus, the Veterans Community Club on campus. And then I ended up being the president of the club. And it's been really something that I've become very passionate about, helping veterans. I also did a volunteer opportunity, which is down here at the bottom, with Growing Veterans, which is an organization in Washington State that helps veterans transition from military service, and also helps with, through farming, they help veterans with deal with things like PTSD, anxiety, and things like that. So once I participated in that volunteer project, I just kind of became very passionate also about helping other veterans and giving back. And so, yeah, I mean, ever since I started a podcast about this whole journey and how I can help other veterans, to try to help other veterans. So it's been something I've
That's
very
awesome.
dedicated to. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, kudos to you for doing that and for recognizing that that was an important part of your transition out of the military and into civilian life, and so recognizing that and pushing that forward and paying it forward for other people. That's awesome. So congratulations on that. That's really amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's really great. Okay, let's go back to your dashboard. And so, what I really think, as we kind of look at things over the sort of the whole picture here, I think that there's several things that I'd like to discuss and just kind of bounce off of you and see what you think. And that is, obviously the GPA issues, are, you've got kind of some ups and downs and stuff related to some personal experiences, but also in terms of your military service and stuff like that. I think some of what's going to happen over the course of the next year or so in terms of your courses at there in North Carolina are going to dictate a little bit of this, and hopefully you're going to do, really well. How are things going this semester?
They're going well. I actually had a question for you about that.
Okay.
So I pretty much have gone through with all of my classes right now. So we're like in finals week. So I've pretty much gone through the semester. It's like almost at the end. And so far I've been doing well, A's and A minuses in all my classes. But I've definitely struggled with physics. And at this point, depending on how my final looks, but it's going to be extremely hard for me to be able to get an A minus in that class. So would getting like 1B out of I'm taking I did 4 classes and 2 labs. The only one that wasn't a science class was my ecology course. I guess it's not considered a science class. So other than that, they're all A's and A's minuses, but that 1B plus, I'm kind of like, oh my gosh, freaking out about.
And that's in physics, you said?
Yes. And I think the biggest, for me, I guess I see it as a red flag because I had taken physics at my school, but it was in a quarter system. So I took only 1/4 of it. So when I got to UNCG, they were like, okay, you have to retake a full semester, obviously physics 1 and 2. And so because I got an A the first time I took it, and now this is a B plus, I feel like I'm like freaking out about it. I don't know if I'm freaking out too much about it.
Well, don't freak out too much about it. B does not equal bad. So, I think you should, focus in on the things that are really going to, be strong motivators for you, and don't focus on those things that are, okay. Maybe, you would have preferred an A, but I think, don't lament too much about the B in physics.
Okay.
And so then you have courses in the spring, and then obviously in the next summer. I think you said you're doing calculus next summer. Is that right?
Yes, I'll just probably be taking that one class during the summer.
Okay, good. All right. So, basically I think, continuing to do well in the courses that you're taking, MCAT's going to be a really big issue. I think a really big thing that for you, I think you need to, obviously I think your plan is a good one in terms of doing well in preparation, focusing in on MCAT prep over the holidays, when you're not in classes, and then really the work that you're going to do over the course of time in the spring in preparation for that May MCAT will be really crucial for you. I think taking as many practice tests as possible under conditions that are similar to what you're going to experience in the testing center will be important. Practice tests are really important in terms of getting used to not only the way the questions are asked, but also in terms of timing yourself and learning how much time you can spend on one passage as opposed to spending too much time, etc. So keep focusing in on that as well. I think the thing that concerns me most at this point is you really have a considerable lack of clinical experience, and that's pretty tough to get these days. And so it sounds like you kind of were aware of that already, that this was an area that you need to really focus in on. And so I think that over the course of the next few months and into the spring, that's going to be an important aspect of your preparation, is really getting some, I know you're doing the e-shadowing, but also getting some really good experience in a clinical environment will be important. This is what leads me to the question that I'm wondering if you really are going to be in a good position to apply next year. My concern is really COVID related, I guess. With the lack of ability to get volunteer work or shadowing experiences, or you've probably experienced that already, and then obviously moving to a new place and not knowing anybody is going to be a little bit of a barrier as well. And so I think probably what I would consider, what I would encourage you to do is to really consider not I don't think that you should necessarily not apply next year, but I do think that you should strongly consider what a timeline would look like if you postponed that by a year. I know that's going to sound horrible, and particularly for non-traditional students, that's a big pill to swallow in terms of, oh my gosh, I finally figured out what I want to do, and now you're telling me I should wait a year or whatever. And but my concerns are, one is the coursework that you're doing now, and obviously getting good marks in that. My biggest concern is about the clinical experience, and I'm really concerned that by next spring, COVID may not be improved enough. The vaccine may not be widely distributed enough. Basically, Indira, so what I'm really going to strongly encourage you to do is to, work toward applying 21, but be prepared for the idea that maybe 22 might be a better year for you.
Yeah, I've definitely.
What do you think about that?
Yeah, I've definitely given that a lot of thought, because I think since my military service, I have become someone who does not like to rush things. I don't want to do things rushed because I feel like some kind of time pressure. I don't feel that way at all.
Yeah.
I did have a question about.
Yes.
So I have read, I'm going to put it that way. I have read about students who have talked about their experiences with someone in their family or someone immediate to them having experienced an illness where they had to help care for them and things like that.
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
Using that as medical experience in a way, like that's been something that they have experienced, taking care of a patient in a way. And so I guess that's where my question would come in terms of like what I experienced with my dad, mainly because of things like, for example, and maybe I have this question because I don't know how to translate it, I guess, into like quote unquote medical hours or whatever. But did we lose you? Oh, okay. But there were times where I had to go, and so I would fly to Colombia to be with my parents, and I'd have to stay with my dad in the hospital overnight and help care for him. And, it was to a point where he could not be alone, but I'm not sure if it was from the system itself or just shortage of the hospital, but pretty much like I had to do things like collect his urine and measure it out and report it to the nurses and things like that. Like it was pretty hands-on when it came to like taking care of him for both me and my mom. And we had to be there 24 hours. So me and her would, swap in and out and help care for him. So I asked that because I'm not sure if that's something that, would be seen as, as an experience that I could use towards that. Or like you said, just take a year, go and get like a job or more volunteering. Like as of right now, I'm going through the training to volunteer at a hospice. And so that's going to be like on the clinical side which is something that I'm starting within the next few weeks. So I'm not sure if like that combined with everything that, I went through with my dad's situation, if that would be enough to kind of reflect that, or if you would still say take a year and then apply.
Yeah, I definitely think that the clinical experience that you had caring for your dad is applicable, absolutely, and that's something that you can definitely put on your application. I'm sure that that's going to be a part of what your personal statement is going to be talking about, is, you know, the care for your dad and kind of that experience and what that did for you, and how that helped you understand medicine a lot more, et cetera. So I definitely think that that's something that can be on your application for sure, and that it is applicable for certain. The concern I have is that, number one, that was in Colombia, which medicine in Colombia, medicine outside of the U.S., as opposed to medicine inside the U.S., can be viewed differently by admissions committees
Okay.
because of the differences in terms of clinical environment or things like that. So it doesn't discount it at all, but it just says it is what it is in terms of it being in Colombia as opposed to in the U.S., and also a family member as opposed to being there with physicians who are caring for, you know, your father or other patients, et cetera. So not in any way would I discount that. I actually think that that's something that would be a big positive for you. However, I do think that getting I still think that you would be a much better applicant in 22 than you would be in 21, by virtue of the ability for you to get some clinical experience, even if it's, you know, getting a job as a medical assistant or as a scribe or whatever. You know, there's a variety of things. Particularly once COVID is kind of subsided some, it's going to be a lot easier for you to get involved in and have some of those experiences. So it's like I said, I would say go ahead and work toward what things would look like in a 21 application, but having in your mind also that it may well be better for you as a 22 applicant to be a stronger applicant at that point, for that reason, in terms of the clinical experience part of it.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And the fact that and I think that, you know, always keeping the goal in mind, that the goal is to get into medical school, and taking, you know, in the grand scheme of things, in terms of what it would look like, an extra year is nothing in terms of the big picture. You know, the number of years that you're going to have to actually be a physician and work in clinical environments and stuff over the course of your entire lifetime. A one extra year is not a big deal. So I would, you know, like I said, I would strongly encourage you to consider the idea of what, and to establish a timeline to say what would this look like? What would I do in that year between 21 and 22 if I was going to delay that application? Because I really do think that you would be a stronger applicant having had those experiences and giving yourself that extra year to get those experiences than if you pushed it without that into the 21 cycle. So I think, you know, it's definitely something that you should consider and think about, and see what that might look like.
Okay, yeah, definitely. I mean, that was a concern coming in to this, which is why I wanted to do this. I didn't know if me working, you know, continuing to work or volunteer rather with the Red Cross, and then doing the volunteering at the hospice, that was going to give me enough to be able to be, you know, a good applicant. But yeah, I could understand having to wait.
Yeah. I the more we talk about it, the more I sort of think that sounds strong to me, particularly if you're going to be able to start getting those experiences, for example, in the hospice and the continuing volunteer work with the American Red Cross. Those are great avenues for experiences, and I'd really encourage you to continue those. And then also let that be a bouncing board off for other experiences that you might be able to get, for sure.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that sounds good. Sounds really good. And then obviously too, that would give you additional time for MCAT prep, give you additional time for retaking it if that became necessary. It broadens the timeline quite a bit so that you're not stuck to a May test date. You can push it into the summer, in terms of your initial test date. So it gives you a lot more possibilities if you delayed that extra year than if you tried to push it in the 21 cycle.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a really good point. I mean, I definitely wanted that wiggle room if I can't take a May 1st for whatever reason, if I'm not there through my practice score test, if they're not there yet, then yeah, I would get pushed regardless.
Yeah.
I don't want to apply late. So yeah.
Yeah, sure. That makes sense. Good. Well, any other questions that you have for me tonight?
No, I mean, I think we covered probably everything that I had like bigger questions about, and definitely gives me an idea that I was, on the right track to kind of the same idea of maybe not applying this year or this coming cycle.
Right. Good. All right. Excellent. Well, thank you. I really appreciate you joining us tonight. It was a delight to meet you, and again, I thank you for your service to the United States and for the efforts that you made in the Navy. That's wonderful experiences. I'm sure that you have lifelong friends that you made in the Navy.
Oh yeah, for sure. Thank you. Yeah, it was a great experience. Wouldn't change it for anything, for sure.